let me tell you, he's got over 787,000 subscribers on YouTube. He's got 83 plus million views on YouTube, 379 videos that he's produced for his channel. He has makesomething.com where you can go for plans and for videos. Just a great website. You need to go check it out. Got over 540,000 followers on Facebook, over 84,000 followers on Instagram, over 18,000 followers on Twitter. He is the author of multiple books, which you should check out, and I hope he will discuss with us tonight. And please help me welcome David Picciuto from Make Something. David.
Hello.
How bad did I butcher your name?
Very close. It's Picciuto. You also forgot my 9 followers on TikTok.
Oh, I didn't know about TikTok. Okay.
I posted, I think, 1 time, maybe twice.
Okay. All right. So that's a work in progress, right?
Sure.
Hey, I really appreciate you coming on with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you've been doing this YouTube thing for a long time, right? I mean, 8 years? I won't say more.
That's 8 years sounds about right. I was a web developer before this, and I really, really wanted to be a YouTuber and quit my job and put all my energy into it, and here I am. And full time for 6 or 7 years, but I've been doing it for probably around 8 years.
A web developer. Now, what about YouTube attracted you to get away from the web development side?
So I went to school for graphic design, and I was working for a marketing agency, and I wasn't that good of a graphic designer. So I kind of pivoted in my career, and I was a better web developer. So, but I kind of understood branding and how to market yourself. And the company that I worked for was a really cool company with very creative people. And so I was surrounded by all these creative people. But I always knew I wanted to do something. I wanted to start a business and be self-employed. That was like a huge goal. And at 10 years ago, I didn't know what that was going to be, but I knew I was going to have my own business. And I started to develop a website that was very similar to what Yelp is now, but it was just like restaurant reviews. And I thought this was going to be my ticket. And my problem was I was developing it for each city. So there was a Toledo one, and then there was going to be a Detroit one, and then there was going to be a Cleveland one. And then Yelp came along and like, oh, you don't need to divide it by city or whatever. But ever since I started working on that site, I knew that I wanted to be self-employed and work for myself. And I had a little bit of video editing background at the agency that I worked at. And I just started picking up woodworking, and it just kind of naturally grew from there.
Now, you say you picked up woodworking, but you're not a classic woodworker, right? I mean, you are, I don't know how you classify yourself. Are you a maker? Because you do a lot more than woodworking. You do metal work and art. How do you classify yourself?
I mostly consider myself a woodworker. That's the most comfortable skill I have. If I need to build a bookcase or a chair, I know how to do that. If I have to make something out of metal, there's a little bit of hesitation. I might have to do a little bit of research, or anything with electronics or anything outside of woodworking. I don't feel comfortable calling myself that particular skill set, whether it's a metal worker or a sculptor or painter or whatever. So I mostly identify with woodworking.
Yeah. So you've done hundreds of videos and you're sharing your knowledge as that you've obtained over the years. But from like the tour of your home, many of your projects on your videos have been things that you were building for your home. Did it start out as, well, I want to build this for my house, so I'll make a video, or I'd like to make a video using these techniques, so I'll use that to make something for my house?
Well, it started off with, I was a hobby photographer, somewhat of a professional photographer, if you call the weddings that I did. I was an assistant wedding photographer for a little bit, but I was entering some art shows for my hobby photography, and at that time, like, just super broke, like living paycheck to paycheck, and to go get your photography professionally framed was, 125, $150 for each photo. And I was like, this is crazy. Now I don't think it's that crazy. But at the time, I was like, this is crazy. I can't afford this. Maybe I'll make my own. And I took woodworking back in high school in the 90s. And so that kind of got me into woodworking. And then the first YouTube woodworker that I kind of fell in love with was Steve Ramsey. And then right after that was Mark Spagnolo. And those two are the ones that I'm like, they do this for a living. That's crazy. That sounds so much fun. That's what I want to do. And so that's how I got into the YouTube woodworking stuff. And then and I was learning woodworking during all this time. I think what took off is I just kind of knew how to market myself. Um and I had a show early on called the Weekly Woodworking Wrap Up Review, where I highlighted other woodworkers. But and so as my skill set kind of built up, I started building not just crafts, but then furniture for the house. And then you as a YouTuber, anytime you make something in the wood shop that's not on camera, you get this crazy guilt feeling like, oh, I should be sharing this with the world. So anything that I made would be I would film, and then 8 years later my house is full of furniture that I made.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty awesome. Go around, show how things have held up, how the cherry is darkened over time.
Yeah,
Just
the fireplace, the cherry. So the sun comes in from the side windows there, and it's really darkened up the fireplace, and it looks really good. Like, that's one of the projects that I'm really happy with. And then not everything is perfect. Like, we have a dining room table that is not very professional. It looks cool, but when you get up close to it, you see all the mistakes on there. So it's a learning process.
yeah, absolutely. So let's address the elephant in the room. Uh,
Okay.
why did you shave?
So usually every spring I shave. And then just kind of start over. I shave one time and I just let it grow back. Except this year, I decided to shave and just keep shaving. So for like 2 months now, I've been clean shaven, and I shaved a little bit earlier this year than normal. Usually, it's like I used to be really, really into baseball. So whenever spring training started, that's when I would shave. Um, but this year, so my grandma, uh, one of the real reason that I shaved this year is my grandma. She broke her leg and she was in the hospital, and now she's in a care facility while she's going through rehab. And so I was going to visit grandma every day, every other day, and I work from home, so I rarely leave the house, and I rarely have to wear a mask for COVID. And but going to the hospital, you have to wear a mask, and then you have to wear a mask the whole time you're there. And that mask was just making my face so itchy every day, and I was just getting frustrated. So one day I got home from the hospital and just shaved it all off, and it made the mask wearing a lot easier.
That makes sense.
Yes.
It's completely understandable. You take this right way. You look younger without the beard.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, but I've seen your videos over the years, and you've had it at different styles, different lengths, but never seen you clean shave for this long. So,
Yeah. Plus, it's good for comments. So
yeah,
I had a bad day last week, and I shot a video about it. And there are so many comments in there saying, "Well, your bad day didn't start until you shaved the beard off." So maybe that's a sign.
yeah. So, whenever you um, whenever you got started with YouTube, and you said, I'm gonna make content, I'm gonna build up my brand. How did you land on make something as a brand name?
It started off as a joke. The first name that I was going by was the Drunken Woodworker, and um, I was just getting started into woodworking. And me and my buddy were drinking whiskey at backyard fire, and he jokingly said, "Let's do a shot and go messing around with the table saw. And I was like, ha ha ha, the drunken woodworker. And then like the next day I made the drunken woodworker Facebook page. And then I started posting videos and posting, and people were, I think, liking my page because of the silly name. So, and then that kind of built up to where I was able to quit my job and I was the drunken woodworker. And I kept getting these emails from shop instructors from schools and stuff saying, um, our kids are building your projects, and it's funny that your name is the drunken woodworker. And so, and I also got some emails from some kids. I'm like, you know what? It's time to get rid of the drunken woodworker and be a little bit more family friendly. I mean, I never drank while woodworking, maybe while sanding, but never running any heavy machinery. And so I'm not really fond of the name Make Something, but at the time I just couldn't think of anything better, and it was taking up so much space in my brain trying to come up with a name that I'm like, you know what, it's just going to be Make Something. Because it came from while I was a drunken woodworker. One day I ended my video with stay passionate and make something, and then that kind of stuck, and then so that's where the name comes from.
Yeah. So I think it's a great name for a brand that identifies you as a maker, a woodworker in the niche, and in the long term, getting rid of the drunken woodworker logo is probably the best thing considering our politically correct world. And
Yeah. Yes.
you can cast a wider net because you're not excluding people that might be trying to avoid that playing around their kids, or
Yeah.
some people just want to be offended. But that's a different conversation.
And there's also I mean, I wanted to be taken serious as a woodworker too.
Yeah.
So I had changing the name helped.
So as you built the brand for Make Something, you eventually released multiple books. I know it's at least 3,
Mm-hmm.
Which that kind of validates you as a source of knowledge. Once you release a book, people look to you and say in a different light, well, he's an author now.
He must know what he's
he's got
doing.
some validity to what he's doing. But if you wouldn't mind, expound on that and tell us a little bit about the books. What do those books offer that somebody wouldn't pick up free online?
So you can't see it, but there's 400 books here on the shelf. I'm a book collector. I love books. Um, I go thrift store. Most of these books are used too, so I go thrift store shopping and antique mall shopping and get all these books. And so I have this like deep love for books. There's something about a book to me that's different than a YouTube video, where um, I know that somebody who writes a book has spent the time to research, and then there's an approval process with editors, and so I trust books more than a video. And so when Springhouse Press reached out to me to do the bandsaw box book, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was floored. At the time, I was making these different bandsaw boxes, and at that time, a lot of the bandsaw boxes out there was like this amoeba shaped type thing. And I brought in my graphic design knowledge and started doing more like geometric shapes, and that got the attention um, of this publisher, and they reached out to me to do a book. And then that bandsaw box book did really well, and we're like, let's do another. And so the next one was cutting boards. They suggested the cutting board book because at the time, and maybe still now, that there was no other cutting board books out there. And so we decided to come up with 15 projects for that. And there's a lot of people who make a living just selling cutting boards. So that book has become pretty popular. And then the latest one is all kitchen tools.
Yeah, so that's a great resource. There's so much with cutting boards. There's so many options. I know some people, most people need to start simple, but as they want to get the designs in the boards and so forth, it's nice to have a reliable resource like that.
It's funny. In the book, there are 15 different cutting boards, and they're all fancy. Some of them are ingrained, and some of them have like a knife holder and all that. I gave them all away to family members, and the cutting board that we actually use is just a slab of walnut that's cut into a 13 by 13-inch square. It's so plain and so boring, and we've been using this since I written the book. So I made all those fancy cutting boards, and then the one that we use is not even an end grain cutting board. It's just a slab of walnut.
See, that's great. Sometimes the utility comes before the art form.
Yeah.
So it's rewarding too. I would think, being able to say, you've published a book, and I think that would be rewarding for yourself. Now, I'm gonna switch gears on you. Every year, you make a set of rings,
Yes.
and I've watched every one of those videos, and each year the style is different. Is that something you would have done regardless of having a YouTube channel, or is that something that you and your spouse said, no, I can do this and it'll create content that I need to produce every year? What's the motivation?
I've never been asked that before. I don't know. So I'd have to go back 7 years and think about that. I don't know if I would have come up with the idea to remake them every year. Maybe. It's been a challenge. So we've got 6 or 7 rings now. And to come up with something different every year, and they don't need to be different for my wife and I. But I feel like they need to be different for the video. So it's a challenge that I put on myself. Yeah, that's a good question. I probably would not have challenged myself to do that every year if it wasn't for the YouTube channel.
All right. So I asked the right question. I
Yeah.
got a one of a kind response here. Okay. So that's great. The rings are a great idea. I think for like me, it's one of those things that I keep saying, yeah, eventually I'm going to make a ring. But I keep watching videos on how to do it, and I haven't done it yet. Where you kind of set yourself a deadline every year, you're going to make rings.
Well, the deadline is sketchy. So our wedding anniversary is in October, and most years I don't get the rings done until November. 1, 2, maybe 4 times I get them done in December. So there is a deadline, but I never make it. But so those who don't know, every year my wife and I retire the old rings, and I make new ones, and eventually I'll build some sort of display stand to hold all the old ones. And it's kind of, and I make them knowing that they're only going to be used for a year. So typically, just a wood ring wouldn't last 40 years. So they only need to last a year, and the wood ones kind of get weathered down. And now that I'm bringing in some metal working into my shop, I got a little metal lathe which greatly strengthens the rings and opens up a lot of possibilities. So
yeah. Speaking of that new metal lathe, what's in a future project for it? I'm looking forward to seeing what else you create with it.
I don't know what I'm going to do as far as a video next, but I need they're called spindle spacers for my go-karts. So I race go-karts, and a lot of time. So for setup, you would move your wheels in or out, your front wheels in or out, and you can get these little spacers, and then you also move them up and down. And then the spaces that you get for they're basically like washers, and you're stacking up like 10 washers and sticking them in there. And it would be nice to just to have like one big one and then a couple small ones to get to that size that I need. And so that's the next thing I'm going to make on the lathe. And that's not going to be a video because I don't think it's very interesting. So I wouldn't be surprised if I don't show that thing off until the next ring video later on this year.
Okay. Well, I'll wait patiently.
But you never know. Like I might change my mind and use it next week. So I don't think too far ahead for projects.
Yeah. So you mentioned Steve Ramsey and Mark. So they've been on the show, and they talked about their transition into YouTube and how they built up a legacy. And I asked them a question. I'm going to ask you something similar. If you could go back in time and tell yourself to do something different at the beginning, whenever you first started doing YouTube,
Mhm.
what would you tell yourself back then?
I think it took me a long time to kind of develop my on-camera personality. So, when anybody kind of first starts off, you don't have enough energy, and when you're trying to learn or watch or be entertained, the energy needs to be up. And so, I ramped up the energy too far, I think, for a long time, and then I brought it back down, and it I think when I look back at these older videos of mine, they feel kind of fake. I'm like, that doesn't really seem like me. So I would tell myself to like focus on who you are. Don't try to be too funny. Don't try to be the comedian. Keep the energy at a nice pace. That helps the videos move along.
Yeah. Nate from Channel Makers, whenever he was on here, talked about most people think they're performing for YouTube at a 8 or a 9 level. In actuality,
Hmm.
they're probably about a 2.
That's a
But
good
then
point. Yes.
but then you have the other thing where you try too hard and you lose your authenticity.
Yeah.
You blow it because you're not being yourself.
Yeah, and it's really weird talking to a camera when you're in a room by yourself and you want to be yourself, but you're not talking to another person. You're actually talking to a piece of electronic gear, and it takes a little bit to get used to that. And then, so yeah, I went up too high, or I started off too low, then I went up too high, and I think now I found a good pace. And I think if I would have found that pace years ago, and I wasn't so goofy in the past, I would, my who knows how big the channel could be now. So, but no regrets. There's no regrets. I have,
No, no,
um, I'm extremely lucky.
no. You've grown a empire here on YouTube. So what? So that being said, what advice you would have given yourself starting in 2022? What would you tell a new YouTuber that they should do? What direction would you point them?
I would really, there's a lot of us out there now. So, um, I would find a niche within woodworking and really just like hammer at that and make sure it is something that you actually love to do. In your little intro, which was very well put together, as I was sitting backstage and you had all these little clips from your previous guests. Um, there, there was lots of good information in there, but somebody mentioned, like just finding that thing that you love and do the thing you love. Don't make things that you don't like making. And eh, there's so many people making YouTube videos that you have a lot of competition. I'm saying that in quotes. There's not between us woodworkers, a lot of us know each other and we're all friends. So it's a friendly competition, but you have competition with every other video that shows up on the page. So when you go to your homepage and there's 15 videos to look at, why would they click on yours over those other 14 videos? So you got to really you got to really focus on what you want to make, and you have to have a hook these days because there are so many people making videos. It's really hard to just say, today I'm going to make a desk. Now it's like, I'm going to make a desk, but I'm going to set it on fire and then do all these crazy things to it. So you got to come up with the hook, and not everything has to be set on fire, but you have to have a reason, not only for the project, but a reason for the people to click on that thumbnail.
Absolutely.
And that's hard.
Being
That is really hard.
being unique and your thumbnails competing with everybody else on that page. In many cases, you're competing with Mr. Beast and,
Exactly. Exactly.
and trying to get the click. So
Yeah.
it's not easy. But I love the woodworking community on YouTube because we are, for the most part, everybody's real supportive of each other. We all
Oh
want
yeah.
to lift each other and see each other succeed. In the end, as much as we want that, there's only so many eyeballs watching YouTube at any given time that are interested in anything to do with woodworking. So it is competitive, even though we can support each other.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask. So I've asked several others about this, but you've had sponsors and you have sponsors.
Hmm.
What advice would you give? Something positive or something to look out for others who are either looking to have sponsors for their channels or who might be being approached by potential sponsors.
Well, if you like, I wouldn't be able to do this for a living if there wasn't sponsors. I wouldn't put out so many videos if there wasn't for the sponsors. So, well, first if you want sponsors, you need to make family friendly content, something that's not going to get demonetized, something that a sponsor would want to be a part of. And basically what they care about is numbers. So you have to have the views, and subscribers is a vanity number, but it's an important number if you want to get sponsors. So you gotta really just work at it, keep putting out as many videos as you can, quality videos as you can, and eventually you'll make enough noise where the sponsors will come knocking on the door. um a lot of time, so if you get approached by sponsors, what's some good advice? I would say it's a partnership and it has to work for both parties. So they want to make you happy and you want to make them happy. So I'll just I've most of my sponsorship most of my sponsored videos have been a very good experience. Most of these modern companies understand that they're buying into your personality, and they will let you say what you want to say. Every once in a while you come across a company that's been around for 150 years and they have very old school ways of dealing with things, and they want to have a say in what you make, and they want to make sure that no other logos are showing up, and then your video has to get approved by their lawyers. So sometimes it is a real pain in the butt. Just be prepared for that and try to get an understanding of what they want before signing everything. I'm lucky enough where I have an agent, and he brings he contacts me. I just send him to my agent, and thankfully he's able to look at the contracts and I don't have to read any of that lawyer speak anymore. Um, a lot of modern companies, though, they have very simple, very basic contracts with a few bullet points of like, this is what we're looking for. And then every once in a while, you'll get the old school companies that have been around for hundreds of years, and they'll send you, it's like a 15-page document of all legal speak, and you're like, what is this? And I've actually said in the past, like, this contract is too wordy, I'm going to pass. And they came back and they rewrote it for me in bullet points, and we signed. So there's no manual on how to work with sponsors, so it's just kind of like figure it out as you go. A lot of woodworkers are friendly with other woodworkers. A lot of YouTubers are friendly with other YouTubers. Reach out and ask for advice.
Okay. So I want to tell everybody we're going to get to your questions and comments. I've just got a few more. I haven't had a chance to talk to David before, so I'm interested in my questions. But if you're getting anything out of this, please give us that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't been here before. And hold on, I promise we're going to talk about something besides just the business of YouTube. Let me ask you this. So we talked about sponsors. What about do you look at statistics often? Do you worry about the YouTube statistics? Are you a student of YouTube in that way?
Well, that's changing right now. So for the longest time, for years, and maybe I got lucky, but I just made what I wanted to make, and that has worked. And now I see this change, and I don't want to get left behind while all these newcomers kind of take over. And because I want to do this for a long time, so I'm seeing less views per video than what I was getting maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I didn't really pay attention to the analytics and all the numbers. But now I'm really kind of diving in. I'm looking to see, and I've just started this like this year. This year, I'm all about the numbers. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. So I'm looking to see when people are dropping out. I'm paying a lot of attention to um, average view duration or percentage viewed. And I'm paying a lot of attention to click-through rates. Those are like the two big things. And those are the things Mr. Beast is going to tell you that you need to pay attention to: click-through rates and average view duration. So I'm not an expert. I'm a student now, but I wasn't last year. So I'm really, really diving in. And so next year I will probably be able to give a lot more advice because I will have a lot more knowledge. But what I've kind of learned is over the years, I've made what I wanted. And now maybe it's time for me to, if I want to keep doing this for a long time, maybe I need to pay attention to what my viewers want. And then there's some sort of, it's a compromise. So if the viewers want DIY tool projects with inexpensive projects, I should do that. And then I should put my spin on there. If the viewers want to see crazy CNCs and lasers and big tools, maybe we'll do that too. But I'm gonna start listening to what my viewers want and kind of go a compromise.
Yeah. So, it's, I'm a student of YouTube. I'm trying to learn everything I can about it. So you look at those things you're talking about with those metrics, and you look at click-through rate. Well, then once you see what it is, you've got to make adjustments. So different thumbnail, different title.
Mhm.
Have you always focused so much on thumbnail and title, or has it been straightforward until last year?
It's I just kind of put a picture of the project on the thumbnail in the past and maybe a few words. And now I'm studying thumbnails a lot. I am definitely not good at thumbnails and titles, and I should be after doing this for 8 years. So shame on me. So I'm learning that now. There's a great book by Daryl Eves called The YouTube Formula, which I'm just about finished with, and it is full of fantastic information. If you want to be a YouTuber, read The YouTube Formula by Daryl Eves. It's so good. Um, so I'm terrible at thumbnails and titles. And so just within the last month, I've been coming up with thumbnails and titles before even going into the wood shop, because that's what all the experts are telling you to do. So I'm trying to think of what the hook, why would somebody watch this video? So I want the people to watch the video because I'm making it, but I have to be real with myself and understand that woodworkers, there's a lot of content to choose from. So they're going to watch what they want to watch. And so I gotta hook them in. I gotta make them like me. I gotta be likable, and I gotta make cool things. So
Yeah, get that cool factor going.
yeah.
So on my last question, then I'm going to ask some from the viewers.
All right.
So on revenue streams, so you have AdSense coming in from YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
You have your sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
You have your book sales and your sales from your plans.
Yes.
What other revenue streams do you have currently, and what are anything that you're thinking about branching into?
Yes. I'm trying to quickly find my notes. I might not be able to find it here. So I think there are 8 or 9 different revenue streams. So I'll try to remember this off the top of my head. We got YouTube AdSense. There are the sponsorships. The sponsorships is the biggest money maker for the channel. There are book sales, so website sales. So book sales, project plans, and merch. Don't make that much money on merch, but it's good. The PDF plans are a good source of income. I have a podcast with Jimmy Drest and Bob Claggett that is Patreon supported, so there's income from that. I have my own Patreon and Amazon affiliate links. I have that. think I think that's all of them. There might be something that I'm missing, but that's the main source of income right there. You have to, like, you have to have diversify and have multiple sources. You can't just rely on YouTube AdSense or sponsorships. You never know what could happen. YouTube has the right to shut down your channel for whatever reason. So you say something wrong, somebody hurts themselves, something could go terribly wrong, and all of a sudden you don't have that revenue stream. So um, expand as much as you can, that within reason. You don't want to do too much stuff because you don't want to lose focus of what you're trying to do. If you should have a website. You should have an email sign up so you can talk to the people that enjoy your content directly through email. You should have all the social medias in case something goes wrong with your YouTube channel. You can communicate through these other channels. So it's important. I'm going to start, not immediately, but I'm going to start other YouTube channels down the road. And so maybe Make Something will be very woodworking focused, where right now it's kind of all over the place. I'm still kind of working this out, so nothing I say is set in stone, but maybe Make Something is very woodworking focused. And then I might have a channel that's just art projects and art-based projects. Maybe we have a metalworking channel. Maybe I bring on another host, but I want to have multiple YouTube channels to build up the empire, um, because I want to do this for a long time. I want to hire people in my community. I have big plans. I want to buy a building here in Toledo, and I want to hire a bunch of Toledo artists to work on videos and be the host of my videos. I want to have a community center where we can have events and everything. And so I've got big plans. So I want to make more money, not to make more money, but so I can fulfill these big dreams that I have with this community art center that I want to do here in Toledo.
Yeah, that's the vision, right?
Yeah.
You got to have something that you've set your goals on beyond just the numbers of subscribers and the number of views and even the number of dollars. It's what is
Yeah.
the real goal.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's about purpose. Like my grandfather, he's a huge inspiration to me. Like he's 99 years old. He's a woodworker. He's out in his wood shop every day, and he makes these little crosses. And he has a purpose every single day, and that is to make these crosses to give away to his friends and family and to his church. And so, uh, if you really want to do this, your purpose should be bigger than just making YouTube videos. So I want to do this community thing, and that's a long way away. I don't have nearly enough money to do that. But if I have these goals, I'm going to keep working towards that, and I'm always going to think bigger. And I want this to be more than just me in my garage making videos.
Yeah, that's great. Let's celebrate a milestone. Mighty Sawdust is finally got that 350th sub. Got my first commissioned build.
That's always
and
fun.
was happy how my modern hanging coat rack turned out. I made my first TikTok video of it. Yeah, I saw your pictures of your coat rack. It looks great, and we celebrate with you. That's great stuff.
Congrats.
Sandy over at McKenzie Lumber Mill says, "I'm really struggling with CTR on thumbnails and titles. Any advice?"
Mackenzie, I wish I was an expert at that. So as I'm learning, one of the things that I'm finding out is curiosity is a big factor in click-through rates. So I am going to show less of the completed project in the thumbnails and maybe more of me halfway through, or something that creates mystery. There's a little teaser. I just try to think, how can you bring curiosity into your titles and thumbnails without overdoing it, because you can be very clickbaity. So you gotta kind of find that nice middle ground. I'm not an expert at thumbnails and titles, so maybe I'll have a better answer for you a year from now.
Yeah, we had this discussion at Workbench Con, and I've seen others have it. Is, do you show the finished product on the thumbnail? And it's really, there doesn't seem to be a definitive answer. But if you do, and that's all the viewer really cares about, then they may not want to watch the entire video. And if you show the finished product during the first 30 seconds of the video? Or are they going to stick around to watch you build it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's outstanding questions there. And then the way you phrase the title needs to create some intrigue, um, and really pull them in. There has to be some kind of hook to get them to select it, and that's a really tough part.
Yeah.
Your recent video, where all your machines seem to um, go
I'm not over
bankrupt
that
on
yet.
you.
Yeah, I'm
All
not over
broke
that
down on one day
yet.
during one project. You know, the hook of that video at the beginning was, you know, I'm not going to say like you said it, you were much more clever, but you basically said, "Hey guys, I had my worst day ever as far as things breaking. Now let me show you what I was doing." And I was stuck to the screen trying to figure out what's he talking about. Everything broke, and why didn't he finish the mugs? You know, because all you showed was the blanks,
Yeah.
and your day was over. So I had to
So,
watch to see what broke.
so I'm so glad I put out that video. I've got such an amazing response on that video. So at the time it was very frustrating because the idea was we're going to make coffee mugs that's usable. You don't have to use any kind of dangerous epoxies that you don't have to worry about it being food safe. And it was supposed to be a 1-day project, fairly inexpensive. Anybody can do this, and it was going to be easy. Every single tool that I used broke. We lost a carbide cutter on the joiner, and then the drill press chuck stopped spinning true. Still don't know why that happened. And then we tripped the brake on the saw stop, and then I broke a blade on the bandsaw, and I just stopped. And halfway through that, we were going like it was like unbelievable. Like how are these things keep happening? How do these things keep happening? My brother was over, and I was off camera. I was mad, and I was kind of embarrassed that I got mad in front of my brother. And I told him, you know what? No matter what happens, I'm gonna have a good attitude about it. It's gonna make for good content. And then even after I said that, things kept happening, and I'm so glad I put out that video because the response has been absolutely amazing. I'm like, everybody's saying, I'm sorry you had a bad day, but that's very relatable. We all have that. And my click through rate on there is like 8.9%,
Yeah.
which is like twice the click through rate on any of my other thumbnails. I don't normally put my face in the thumbnail. Everybody says to put your face in the thumbnail, but I don't want to be the shock face guy in the thumbnail. I just don't. It doesn't feel like me. But this particular thumbnail, my face is in there. I'm like, ah. And so people do connect with emotion. They do connect with faces. So, and then there's this curiosity. The video is called "My Worst Shop Day Ever." So, and at the very beginning of the video, I told people a whole bunch of things went wrong, and at the end of the video, we're going to tally up all of the things. And so that kept people engaged and watching. It has one of my longest average view durations for any video of the past year because people kept wanting to see what's the next thing that's going to go wrong. Then they wanted to see the tally of all the damage at the end of the video, what that total was going to be. And I went to school on that video. I learned a lot. And so you might see my faces in more thumbnails now. There might be a little bit more color, and there might be a little bit more emotion, hopefully a lot more curiosity and a bigger click-through rate.
Now, like I say, to me, it was a great hook. It got me watching, and I wanted to see everything that went wrong. I didn't want to just get to the totals at the end, um, because it's relatable and it's the drama about it, and it's a solid hook in a video. And I think it's important, for makers and woodworkers to show when things go wrong
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
because I've seen enough videos where, you know, this project took 3,000 cuts and every one of them went perfect and everything lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's enough of that.
So in basic storytelling, whether it's somebody making a YouTube video or the movies or a book, there's always a villain somewhere in there, and then so you have the conflict, and then it's resolved at the end. How do you do that in woodworking videos to keep people's attention? So that's you. I've thought about this a lot, and I can't find. And I know I'm going to come up. I'm going to come up with this amazing formula, and 2 years down the road, I'm going to have the biggest woodworking channel in the world because I'm going to have this formula down. I'm going to figure out how to bring in a villain, not like fake tools breaking or whatever, but what if, we bring in, there's a variable, and we don't know what that variable is going to be. Maybe there's somebody else, like my brother who's working with me, throws in the wrench, and then I have to figure out how to get out of this. So if I can figure out how to bring in a villain, but an authentic villain, not fake, hopefully I can come up with a new woodworking YouTube formula for myself.
Yeah, I think storytelling in our niche is kind of difficult.
It is.
Because like you say, the typical protagonist, antagonist story. But there's the ticking clock scenario where your protagonist is actually the clock ticking down. You've got to get a project done because of a deadline.
Yeah.
But you don't want to fake those deadlines because your audience will pick up on it real quick.
Yeah, and I mean, there'll probably be plenty of people who don't like those type of videos because they just want to see the thing being built without drama. And that will be great because there will be hundreds of other people making videos of how to do something step by step, and it just has your beginning, middle, and end. But like I said, I want to do this for a long time. I want to make the best woodworking videos in the world. That's all I think about, and so I'm gonna figure out what that hook is gonna be.
Yeah, I would guess that most of the people that watch your videos and watch any woodworking videos are not going to end up making that particular project.
Exactly.
So they're watching it for entertainment purposes in addition to knowledge transfer.
Yeah. I love it when I make something that nobody will ever make, but they said, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that particular technique." Like that makes me feel really good. Or if if it inspires somebody to just make something. Like I can look at a building and look at the shape and think, "Oh, what if I made that into a box?" So that building has nothing to do with woodworking, but I can still get inspiration from that and turn it into something. So that's what I'm hoping my viewers get out of my videos.
Next question here comes from Rick Engelhart. What was the muscle car you were driving in the video?
That is a 1967 Chevy Impala that belonged to my dad. So that was the car that we had in the garage growing up. And then when my dad passed away a few years ago, it actually went to my uncle. And at that time, I didn't even want the car. I had no place to put it. And then last summer, my uncle says, "Hey, Dave, I think I need to sell the car." Basically, my uncle, the inside of the car is in beautiful shape. The outside needs a lot of work. And then my uncle went to get estimates on getting it painted, and it's going to be 20,000 plus to paint it. And he's like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to sell it." And I was like, "I'll take it. I'll buy it from you." And so I got it last fall, and the plan is to learn how to do body work and paint it myself. And it's kind of scary, but if I screw it up, I can just redo it again, I guess. So I like putting the car in the video for a brief second. So I had it in there for the Squarespace read as a teaser, just so people like Rick would ask, what is that? So that's and I got a lot of people saying they watched the whole Squarespace read because they were curious on what I was driving. So always trying to be creative, and I want people to sit through my sponsors because they're allowing me to do what I'm doing. So yeah, 67 Chevy Impala, and it's super awesome. It's loud. It's got more bark than bite. It sounds tough, but it's not all that tough.
Nice car. R.A. Charlie Guy says, "Can you briefly describe the process and mindset of going full time?"
That's difficult. That's going to be different for everybody. To quit your job and to do this full time is super scary. Like, I got kind of lucky where I had a good job and I really liked it, but I wasn't keeping up with a lot of the technology, and I was, um, the kids coming up where they just knew more about web design than I did, and I was feeling like I'm falling behind. What am I going to do? And then we got all these clients that involved work that I really, really hated, and it was really frustrating. And my wife Kelly, she saw that frustration, and she's like, "Well, what if you just did the YouTube thing full time?" Because at that time, I was selling plans. I just got the book deal, and I wasn't making enough to support myself at the time. But once I quit my job, I was all in, and that's all I focused on, and I worked a lot. That first couple of years, I was just working nonstop. I'm still working nonstop, but not as intensely as that moment. But that's going to be different for everybody. You need to have things in place. Like, we added up what all our bills were and what we had to make that month. And you can get rid of the Netflixes and the Hulus and you don't need to buy coffees every time you go out. So you kind of figured out, like, what's the minimum amount of money that I can make or I need to make to do this. And turns out once I was able to put 100% of my focus into it, I was able to figure out how to make a living from it. So that's going to be different for everybody. It's not like I didn't have a lot of money in. I don't think I had any money in the bank. Actually, I was still living kind of check to check. Um, but that's going to be different for everybody, and we don't have kids, so that made it a lot easier. If you have people that you're supporting, you got to kind of figure out what to do. So I remember Bob Clegg, at my podcast mate, um Jimmy and I were telling him, like, dude, you got to quit your job. You can do this. And Bob was like, no, I got to get all these things in place. And so Bob was a lot more careful than I was, where I was just like, okay, let's do it, let's just figure it out, and if it doesn't work, I'll go get another job. But Bob, made sure he had money saved and things in place. So everybody takes a different approach, and you just got to do what's comfortable or on the edge of uncomfortable.
Yeah. Awesome. Dusty Trails Woodworking wants to know, when you're looking for inspiration for an upcoming build, where do you gravitate to first?
Books. I wish I could show it, but I've got 400 books here. My favorite books are the books from the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s, where they're just projects. They're great sources of inspiration to see how things were made then. And I will pick apart things that I like from those projects and incorporate them into what I do now. Yeah, books is the absolute number one inspiration source. Like, I just love the smell of books, and I just love looking at them. When I'm sitting at my computer and I look up and I just see this wall of books, that makes me feel so warm and fuzzy. And I'm also looking on Pinterest. I don't know how many people are using Pinterest, but I keep personal Pinterest boards of things that I like. I'm like, oh, that'd be a good idea in the future. And then I have notebooks. There's one, but just I write down. This one's empty. I'm showing you an empty notebook. But I write down anything. All ideas go into a notebook, either digital or real. And doesn't mean I'm going to make that now, but when I go through that list a year or 2 years from now, I'll look at it and be like, what was I thinking? Why would I write that down? But what if I did this? And so it's almost like brainstorming with yourself when you look at your old notes. So write down everything. I've got 200 projects that I want to do this year, and I'm only going to be able to do 30.
Yeah. It's whenever you see something and you get those random ideas, it's great to make a note of them somewhere.
Yeah.
It might spark another idea later. All right. PJ Barker says, I watch a lot of videos. How do you feel about the ones that just show the work and never talk? I actually do not like to watch those.
I mean, there's a that's the great thing about YouTube is there are so many people making things. There's something for everybody. So, um, I I tend to gravitate towards people who actually do talk and are explaining because I like I'm attracted to personalities. So when somebody's talking and explaining things, like that's what I want. Um, but a lot of times those videos where people are not talking and they're just showing something being made, those videos do really well because they make for great they're not very like if you'll see in my analytics if I talk too much, people drop off, skip ahead or leave or go somewhere else. But I would imagine those videos get some good retention because it's just action nonstop. So there's something for everybody.
Absolutely. Um, you know, some people like to do voiceover, and some people like to, talk during their videos with themselves on the camera. Other people don't like to show their face at all, and they might just do voiceover.
Hmm.
And some will just show the action and won't have anything. Just like some videos will have some music, and some won't. Lot of variety, and I'm not sure there's one clear cut way to do it right.
No,
Um,
no.
but like you know, Cam from Blacktail Studios, he does voiceover,
Hmm.
and his videos are obviously doing well.
Very, very well. And then, and Jimmy Dresta has made a whole career on
Yeah.
not talking and just showing sped up footage of his stuff. And he talks more now, and I'm glad he does because absolutely love Jimmy's personality, and I want him to talk in every video, and I want to know what he's thinking because he's such a brilliant creator.
Mm, absolutely. Um, so Sandy from McKenzie Lumber Mill says, doing a YouTube business is overwhelming. What advice would you give a sawmill woodworking channel? So they actually have a sawmill on their property,
Yeah.
and they harvest the trees and do the sawmills and do videos based on
Well, that's out of my league, but I'm curious to know how a sawmill works. Like I mean, I know it cuts slabs, but um there's like where do the trees come from? How long does it take to saw this? Like where is this wood going? Do you saw up the wood and sell it? Do you have people coming in requesting this these slabs? Like there's definitely some good stories there. um it's if you can Casey Neistat is a great success story of pulling out stories out of nothing. I mean, he had one of the most successful YouTube channels just talking about his daily life in New York, which most people that'd be pretty boring, but he was really good at pulling out the story. So just start making videos of the process and you'll figure out the people will let you know in the comments what are the interesting parts and what are the boring parts. So just keep making a bunch of videos until you find what people are attracted to.
Dusty Trails Dusty Trails Workshop says, how would you suggest more engagement? I don't personally know a lot of makers to seek feedback and struggling to find eyeballs.
So um sometimes I play dumb in my videos. Sometimes I don't get too wrapped up in the actual names of things. So, I might grab a tool, I might call it the wrong name, or I mean, like, whatever this tool is called, I'm just going to use this. And then people will be like, well, that tool is called blah, 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 because people like to show their knowledge. People like, so if you leave little information gaps throughout the video, whether intentionally or unintentionally, people are going to fill in those gaps for you because people love to show off what they know. So comments is great engagement, and just I focus a lot on the flow of my videos. So lately, over the last 4 or 5 months, you'll notice that there's almost nonstop talking, even during the action shots. So I might be cutting something on a table saw, but the voice from the next clip is going underneath that, and then it finishes the cut, and then you see me talking, but the voice has been talking for 10 seconds already, and that helps keep the flow of the video going, to keep people interested. I as I'm looking at my metrics now and I'm seeing where people leave, it is when you have gaps of too much talking, like what I'm doing now, or too much repetitive table saw shots, or too much of this. People know what a drill looks like. If you got 20 holes to drill, I only have to show one of them for my style. Your style might be different, but I pay a lot of attention to how the video flows and feels. And a great way to keep up the viewership throughout a video is bring in your spouse or your friends, or and have them sit and watch your final cut with you. And the parts where you cringe, or where you have to like, well, here, blah blah, like where you have to justify something, that's a part that you need to cut and fix. And you want people watching all the way to the end.
Yeah, it's one of the habits of. Well, I still am tempted to do it. Yeah, I think new people on YouTube, if they're cutting 20 boards, they want to show every cut on video,
Mhm.
and if they're painting a board, they want to show every paint stroke. But the audience just needs to get the gist of it, and then you move on.
And while you're showing those things, most of my views are on mobile. Like, so look where your views are coming from, and I would imagine most of your views are on phones. So, um, a table saw shot really far away might look fine on your TV or your computer, but if people are watching it on the phone, you might want to rethink those shots. So you have to think of an engagement and interaction that way too. Like how are they viewing your videos?
John from Lincoln Street Woodwork says, there's obviously more noise than before, but overall, are you encouraged, optimistic about the direction YouTube as a platform?
Yes. First of all, you have an awesome YouTube channel yourself. Um, yeah, I am very optimistic. So if you play the game right, and always be a student, I think there's room for everybody. And I've to me, I only have 700,000 subscribers. There's a lot more people in the world that's interested in woodworking. Like there are woodworking channels that have 4 million subscribers. There's no reason I can't be there. There's no reason you can't be there. So I know that there's people out there that want to consume that content, either for knowledge or entertainment. So I'm very optimistic. There's a whole audience that doesn't know about me, or knew about me in the past and didn't like the old David, but maybe they're going to like the current David, who is a little bit more real. So I'm super optimistic. And as more people, uh, more people are just YouTube is just more people are getting on YouTube, not just here in the States, but throughout the world. And there's endless possibilities.
Yeah, it's the number 2 search engine, and
Yeah.
it's going strong. If anybody wants an answer, if they're a visual person at all, they're going to YouTube.
Yep.
So there's a lot to do. This may be the most important question of the night. David.
Oh, Peter.
Peter wants to know, have you tried a taco yet?
No. So the thing is, thanks, Peter. I love Peter. He's such a good guy, and super creative. I've never had a taco in my life. I don't like the smell of taco seasoning. Um, and so I realized, maybe, I'm 46 years old now. I realized like 20 years ago that I had never had a taco, and people thought that was really weird. So I've just kind of clung on to that. I've never had a taco. One day I will eat a taco, and it will be for a lot of money, and it's going to go to a charity or something. It will be a big event when I have a taco. It will be huge. So I want to build up millions of subscribers first, make it into this big thing, and then I eat a taco on camera and benefit my favorite charity one day.
I can't wait to see.
Or never. I'll be fine dying at an old age with never having a taco. Thanks, Peter.
Was there a video once about your grandfather? 4321 was asking.
Yes, I've got 2 videos on my grandpa. So I put out one on Christmas Day. So 3-4 years ago, I made a video about my grandpa. He makes these little crosses, and the funny thing is, I asked my grandpa, like, he's made 30,000 crosses now. He keeps track of them. But a few years ago, I asked my grandpa if I could make a video about him in the shop making these crosses. And he was like, no, why would you want to do that? And then word got out through local news organizations, and the local news channels and newspapers started interviewing him. Like, this 90-some-year-old guy is making these crosses, and they've been distributed all over the world. And then Grandpa came back to me and said, okay, let's shoot a video. That'll be fun, since he was getting some attention, and he just loved it. So every time I went over to Grandpa's, he would ask how many views the video had gotten. And so anytime, and my phone never works in his little town that he lives in. So I always had to look up how many views it got before heading over to Grandpa's. And then he's 99 years old now. And a few months ago, he asked me, he's like, hey, can we shoot an updated video? You know, I'm over 20,000 crosses now. Can we shoot another video as an update video? And I was like, absolutely, of course. And he had the title for the video already laid out for me. He wrote it down. He's like, 99-year-old World War II vet makes crosses, or something like that. Like, Grandpa's the king of thumbnails and titles, apparently. And so when Grandpa asked, I was like, of course. And so we shot that video and released that on Christmas. And then this July he's going to turn 100. Still in the shop. If it's warm enough to be in the shop, he's in the shop almost every day.
That's awesome. Put him in charge of creativity for thumbnails
No kidding.
and titles.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. So Rick Englehart says, what was the muscle car? Okay, I thought we had that. Yep. I'm sorry. I think I put a star back on it by accident. All right. Lawrence Lunsford. Lawrence, glad you're here. Is that a Reverend guitar hanging on the wall?
Both of them are. So, yes. Reverend is located here in Toledo, Ohio. Their headquarters are here in Toledo. And so, yes, it used to be out in Detroit, and now it's in Toledo. I'm going to hang this back up before I hurt myself. So the orange one I bought because I thought it would be cool to have a local made guitar. And then they contacted me to make a sign for their shop and for one of their pickup lines, guitar pickup lines. And so I did that in trade for the green Mike Watt bass. So yeah, I love the fact that they're just down the road and it's a local company. And I'm not the greatest guitar player in the world, but I do enjoy playing.
Well, while you're talking about guitars, Ron's Woodshack says, totally off topic. It's on topic now. I mean,
okay.
I was wondering about your guitars and that big old amplifier.
So, okay. I'm going to go grab another guitar, and that's going to complete the story of that amp back there. This will only take 1 second.
No worries. We will sit here and sing Kumbaya until you return. I do appreciate everyone's questions tonight. And if you got anything out of this, I hope you're giving us a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. We have next week, the Den of Tools. We're going to meet Red, the man behind the bear. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, David.
So that was an excellent job of filling in while I went away. So back in 2001-ish, I was in a band, but I didn't own a guitar. And my dad thought I just couldn't afford my own guitar. So I was always borrowing. My dad thought that was crazy. So my dad took me to Cleveland and we were going to go find a used guitar to buy. And we came across this one. And this is made by a company called Supro. And this is a 1964 Supro Reso glass guitar. And you have to bear with me because the story is I'm still blown away by the story. So we walk into this place called Heights Guitar in Cleveland, and I immediately saw this guitar, and I was a huge White Stripes Jack White fan, and he plays an Airline, which is also it's fiberglass based guitar, and so I saw this. I'm like, that's the guitar that I want. And the guy working there, he goes, hey, this is my last day. I'm quitting right now. We're closing in a few minutes. He saw me pick up the guitar. He's like, and the guitar was listed for like $500 and some dollars. Was gonna buy it at that. And he's like, if I sold it to you for $350, would you get out of the shop right now? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, oh, by the way, Joe Walsh used to own this guitar. And we're like, what? Like he had this type of guitar? And he's like, no, this used to belong to Joe Walsh of the Eagles and Joe Walsh fame. He traded it to a guy named Michael Stanley, who was another Cleveland musician. He had the Michael Stanley band back in the 70s. And then it got traded to Heights Guitar. And so got the guitar. And I don't know what the story was of this guy quitting his job, but he was not happy. He threw in a whole bunch of strings. He threw in a free case. He threw in a tuner pedal. He was like, I don't care. I hate this job. I just need to get out of here. I need to get you guys out of here. So I got this guitar really cheap. And then I contacted Michael Stanley. He was a radio DJ. And I said, hey, I got this guitar from Heights. The guy said it was owned by Joe Walsh. And he's like, yep, it was owned by Joe Walsh. I traded some pedals for it with him and then sold it to Heights Guitar later on. I've never been in contact with Joe Walsh, but so I've had this guitar and it's kind of a rare guitar because this was sold at Montgomery Ward's back in the 60s and it's fiberglass. So it's a very cheaply made guitar. A lot of them didn't survive. So there's not a lot of them around just because they were so cheaply made. So I've had this guitar for 20 years that I absolutely love, will never get rid of. I'll sell everything that I own except that guitar. And then this amp back here is the matching amp. So a local guitar shop had this in there, and it's the amp that goes with this guitar. And they wanted $1,100 for it. And I was like, oh, that sucks. That's just way too much. And, I don't play out anymore. And I already have a couple amps. I don't really need one. I came home and told my wife, Kelly, and she goes, you'll never, ever come across the matching amp to your guitar ever again. Go back and get it. So I paid $1,100 for that amp. And that's the story. It's a long story, but I love those two things. They just look so good.
She was right. You have got to buy that when you see it. That is the best time to buy something like that is when you see it, because you'll never find another one.
Yeah.
That's an awesome story, and I can sense your passion about that guitar as well. That's great. Let's see. So, what's your process for producing a video?
So I have a big notebook, also a digital file of ideas. I never really know what I'm going to make until I go to make it. And so I kind of go through my ideas when I come up with. When something hits me, like, okay, now I'm ready to make that. I want to make that right now. I'll start drawing it up a couple nights before, make sure I have all the materials. And then I've done this for so long that I don't really need to plan out the shots. I already know what I need to do, especially if the project is drawn up in Fusion. And then it's shoot all day. And I try to, if I shoot for 8 hours, I'm hoping to only get 60 minutes of footage. I always want less than 60 minutes. That's always hard, but that makes the editing process a lot easier. A lot of projects can be made in 1 or 2 days. So it's usually 1 or 2 days of shooting and then almost a full day of editing. I might have a rough edit. If I start at 9 a.m., I might have a rough edit done by noon, but it's from noon to like 6, 7 o'clock is when all the you're making sure the flow is good. If you have any kind of animated graphics or not special effects, but sometimes you transition and things like that. That's stuff that all takes a whole bunch of time. And so and then so there might be 3 days to make the video, and then if there are plans for the project, the plans take me a full day to make as well. And I hate making plans, so maybe somebody that can help me. I can find somebody to help me with that. And then on launch day, there's a full day of answering questions, like when I launch a video, answering questions or and writing the title and the description and the e-blast, and if it's going to go up on the website, writing the website article and promote it on Twitter. Launch day is my favorite day. That is my favorite day of the week. I just absolutely love launching videos and getting the feedback. So yeah, that's most videos take 4 to 5 full days to make, and I would like to streamline that. I would like to put out more videos in a week, but that's my typical schedule. And somewhere in there, I got to record a podcast, and I got to ship products, and I've got to update the website and answer emails and do all the other stuff. So
How many different cameras might you be using on a single project?
usually two. I have two Sony. I have it's a Sony FX3 and a Sony A7S3, and they're basically the same camera. Um, and the only reason I have two is to help me film faster. So each one has a different lens on there, and I'm not swapping lenses. And one is just ready to go for like a close up, one is ready to go for more of a wide angle or establishing shot. You don't need two cameras, but I do to save time because I want to streamline the process as much as I can.
No, that's smart. What software do you use for editing?
Editing, I'm in Final Cut Pro.
Okay. And what do you do for sound? What's your microphone of choice?
It's the Rode. It's a lavalier. I don't remember the model number, but it's the wireless Rode. So I got the receiver plugged in on the camera, and then the transmitter in my pocket with a lav mic taped underneath my shirt.
Great. Sorry to hit you with so many questions back to back, but I know there'll be audience members that want to
keep
hear
them
you.
coming. I love talking to equipment. So if you have questions about equipment,
Nicholas Kyle says, "Are you a Patreon to anyone else who is a maker or YouTube creator? And does Patreon take a decent chunk out of your monthly revenue?"
so this maybe this will sound bad, but I used to be a Patreon subscriber to about 30 different people, and then um, I realized that was a big chunk of my that's a big chunk of money that I was losing every month, and so I had to make the decision to pull that back. And I don't think I'm a Patreon of any of the other woodworkers right now, and I know that sounds bad, but for a long time I was to anybody that was on Patreon. Um, Now the people that I subscribe to on Patreon are a lot of times musicians or motion graphic artists where they have their files for available to download. Um, so yeah, it's uh, I might only have like 4 or 5 people that I subscribe to on Patreon now.
And how much of a chunk does Patreon take out of the money they collect for you?
That's a good question for somebody else because I have absolutely no idea.
Oh, okay. Okay. No worries.
There's only one of me, and I can only focus so much energy on all these little things, and I want to do all the things. You know, I want to start my own podcast besides the one I do with Bob and Jimmy. I want to put out 2 videos a week. I want to contribute to the website, but I can't do all these things. So eventually I'm going to have to start hiring out so I can do all these things that I want.
Dancing Along with Reynolds says, do you save all of your raw footage, and how do you back up important videos?
I do. For the longest time, I only saved the final edit and got rid of everything. But for the past 3-4 years, I've saved everything, including all the raw footage. And I'm not very knowledgeable on this stuff, but I have what's called a Synology NAS system, NAS. So basically it just holds a whole bunch of hard drives, and I can save all my project files to that. And it's like, and it's got redundancy. So if one of the hard drive crashes, it's okay. Like, I'm the wrong person to ask about how that stuff works. Bob Claggett was like, you got to do this. If you want to back up your stuff, you got to do this. And I watched a video, and now that's what I have. So I have this super expensive backup system, but it holds all of my footage. And so for the longest time, I didn't keep all that. But a lot of times now I'm referencing old videos. And if you want to bring traffic to your old videos, you should reference them. And so it's great to have that footage that I can fall back on.
Awesome. So a couple of questions about, not controversial, but in some aspects controversial.
I'm ready.
So what's your opinion about pocket hole screws whenever it comes to woodworking?
Oh, hitting with the deep, hard questions. I love pocket hole screws. Anything that makes woodworking accessible to everybody is amazing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with pocket hole screws. There are, in woodworking, there are a million ways to do everything. Do use the joinery that works best for you and your particular situation. So pocket hole screws for the win whenever I can. So quick and so easy.
Yeah. I love that question. So what's your favorite finish? Whenever you're working with wood, what's your favorite finish to put on?
These days I really enjoy what is it? Looks like honey, comes in a little jar, and it's stupid expensive.
Odie's
Correct.
oil?
Odie's oil, yes.
Okay.
That is my favorite finish. I wish it wasn't so expensive, but and the reason it's my favorite finish is because I'm filming, I need to add a finish, and I need to move on to the next step as quick as possible. And so that is a great finish when you need to move on with your life. Now, anything that I'm doing that that's going to take a beating, like an end table or dining room table, I will use polyurethane, and I will finish that over multiple days. Finishing is one thing that I kind of skim over a lot in the video. So if I am making something with polyurethane, usually it's got one coat on there, and I can shoot my final shots and make the video. And then after the video's done, I can apply the other coats. But Odie's oil is so, you can't mess it up, because it's like a wipe.
Yeah.
It's like honey, and you wipe it on, wipe it off. It smells like cologne. I don't know why it smells so good, but it smells amazing. It's just stupid expensive.
It is expensive, but a little goes a long way. I mean, you can.
It does.
You can
Yeah.
really spread it, and you can't put too much of it on because it'll just buff right off. So
Yeah.
I like that. That's good stuff. Do you have you done things with Rubio coat?
I am not familiar with that. Tell me more.
So I haven't done it, but like saw 731 Woodworks, and I think that's what Hillbilly Chick is referencing here. Rubio. Am I saying that right, Hillbilly Chick? Can you confirm it is Rubio coat? But I may be getting that right. Woodcraft Asimon, who loves his cameras and equipment and does a great job with them, says, do you shoot 1080p then, or are you saving 4K footage?
4K footage. So I record everything in 4K. As soon as I can record in 8K, I'll record everything in 8K. The reason is I can shoot 4K, and in post, I can pan and scan a little bit, and it gives me more options. And so I will, as long as I can afford it, and as long as I can have a computer that can handle, I will always shoot at the highest resolution I can, because it just gives me more options in post to zoom in on things or do some pan and scans.
And Two Elms Build says that it's a Rubio monocoat.
I was Googling that because I'm very curious, and I always want to know about new finishes and techniques. So I've got that bookmarked now.
Yeah, the videos I've seen on it, everybody's super impressed with it. So Rubio monocoat. So I tried to do an introduction to you that gave you the respect that you deserve. Did I miss anything, or where should people find you and be able to watch your content, read about your projects, buy your content, your books?
Well, my main bread and butter is YouTube, so it's youtube.com/make something. If you're not familiar with me, watch a few videos, and if you like what you see, you can head over to the website. There's plans, and I've got my 3 books for sale. The books that I sell on my website, they're signed. If you need to get them cheaper, they're 25% less over on Amazon. Get them there. You might be able to find them at some of your local bookstores or even your library. Go to the library and borrow it if you're curious. But yeah, main bread and butter is YouTube. So head on over to YouTube and search for Make Something.
David, thank you so much for being here. Everybody watching, thank you for the participation tonight. Great questions, great comments going back and forth in the chat. And I always appreciate you being here. And as for me, I hear my wife calling, I got to go.
And I think it's easier for people to look at my story, for example, or anybody like in a similar story, and think that that was an easy decision. And I can't state how much that was a very hard decision for both my wife and I.
I still do some from time to time now.
Okay. And what led you from that into video creation on YouTube?
Boredom.
What's the next step? What is the next thing? What's going to get you to that next place?
It wasn't like YouTube's good and this and that. Like I was still pretty new to YouTube and didn't know that was sustainable long term, and so it was a gamble. And I'd worked for a long time to get in the position I was at, and it was a very, very hard decision to basically give that up for potentially the rest of my life.
With me being a business-minded individual and trying to make sure that I'm providing for my family, but also always growing.
It's really kind of sad because I didn't get involved even when he was doing the noodle boards. He pretty much did all that. I did everything in the house so that he could stay in the shop a lot.
I am a little conflicted, I think. It initially started off with just sharing like my sewing machines and sewing tips and stuff like that. And then it kind of morphed into sharing the Mastering Mayhem merch items that I was making. And then along the way, I kind of shared some DeWalt tool and obsessions that I've had.
Hats off to Ira. I mean, I can't imagine doing it with small kids. That's a lot of work.
Well, this is a little chaotic, so.
My part really didn't start until Live Edge started. When we started Live Edge, I don't know, I felt different about everything. It felt real to me. I think everything started feeling real to him, after the first few months because he was in the shop. It didn't really feel real to me until Live Edge started. And now I see this as my future too. I don't think I'll be a teacher much longer.
Because I wasn't quite niched enough, but I think because my channel name is I Don't Even Work Here, I think I'm just going to roll with.
I'm going to put out some shorts for staging. Staging is simply where you make the piece of furniture or the item, whatever it is, if it's, wall decor, whatever it is that you're making. It's just where you simply make it look like it belongs in a home.
I never even considered the second channel. I just think that all of my content needs to go where I am.
I'll always be that individual that loves YouTube, that always wants to do extremely detailed videos on how to build?
I was living in Charleston. This was back in, we're talking 2013, March 19th, 2013 was when I posted my very first video.
So think about what the kid actually wants. Try to come up with projects that are quick wins. Sometimes it's not even really hammering something or sawing something. Sometimes it's just simply gluing a couple things together and then painting it. Like, think like a kid.
I had talked to a lot of people in the area trying to find a woodworkers group, people that were building stuff. Didn't even have to be woodworking, there just wasn't much of it. So a friend of mine suggested making videos on YouTube to reach out to other, meet other woodworkers, reach out to other people who were building things. And so I started checking it out, and that was really cool. I saw, back then it was Steve Ramsey, Mark Spagnolo, Laney Shaughnessy, and of course Matt's Basement Workshop. And they were kind of, those are really the four guys. I call them the four fathers. They're the four guys that really started the woodworking DIY thing on YouTube. Those were the guys that started it all. And then there was Matthias Wandel and John Heinz came along. And about the same time, Jimmy DiResta had started his thing, Bob Claggett, and I started about the same time, roughly within a year span there. We all started right around the same time, and it was just fun and exciting. I put a video up. It was the worst video that's ever been posted to YouTube. If you're hard on your videos, go check out my very first video ever. You won't feel so bad, I promise. But people commented, and I was interacting with them, and I took like another 2 months and I put up another video, and it happened again. People were, commenting and talking, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And at those points, I was watching a lot of YouTube. It was ridiculous. I had done a lot of fishing because I had a lot of free time. So I've been fishing and watching YouTube videos. And I kind of saw that there was this gap in the market of things that, just these in the industrial side of making or furniture or other things, you tend to see a lot of things that you don't see in the DIY sector. And there's a lot of adaptations that I saw that were possible. So I took a lot of my knowledge from that side of the world and kind of adapted it to the DIY and just started doing a lot of crazy and wild things that people hadn't seen before on equipment that wasn't designed for it, but it worked.
I've had them different times throughout the course of 14 years for different projects and different things that I'm working on. Right now, the team members behind the scenes all have to do with my online courses, but everything else, as far as what I do for my channel, it's just all me.
Doing the research is not necessarily going to be the fun part, right? And we had Mr. King on here a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about the research he did before he released a single YouTube short. Well, the research he did led him to putting together a video less than a minute, but there was many, many hours of research before that, but it led to 5 million views. So research can be very important. This is counterintuitive to a lot of the suggestion out there on YouTube where everybody says, just hit record. Just go out in the garage and hit record. And your viewpoint seems to be different than that. What do you say to those people that say, just hit record?
I'm glad you brought it up, RT. There's a lot of, I call them talking points that have manifested themselves for whatever reason in the how to grow space. The just hit record is probably one of the ones that drives me the most insane. You can go out and just hit record, but again, set your expectations for what you think the output and the end result is going to be. You get out of things what you put into them, and you may get lucky and you might catch a unicorn, but I'm going to bet 9 times out of 10, if you just go out and you hit record, you don't do any research, you don't have a plan, you don't have a rough script, you don't have a target audience, you don't have value that you're looking to provide. Again, I just think you're setting yourself up for unneeded frustration when a little prep and work up front can pay extreme dividends in the end. And you don't get a do-over when you post the video. Once it goes out into the interwebs, it's done. And you can't go back and redo the same topic right away because then you look like a goof.
I'm inspired by this guy.
it's a little not fair because he does have a bigger, larger channel, but he has a smaller woodworking channel that's done pretty well this past year as well as in 2020. And his name is Robert Dunn.
Authenticity is something that I strive for all the time. I always try to just be myself, but everybody always says that. They always say, well, when you're on camera, just be yourself. But as soon as the camera goes on, you're never really yourself because you're always aware of the image that you're projecting, and then you're going to refine that further when you're editing it. At best, I think most of us are only, at best, maybe 80 to 90% ourselves. There's always that part that's carefully curated.
And he's hilarious. I think he is one of the best people in front of the camera in our space. His bigger channel is a car channel. I'm not going to kind of focus on that. But under Dunn, he has made a handful of videos this past year. Not nearly as many as he made in 2020, but he's still racked in quite a few views. Especially, he had some videos over 100,000, some over 500,000. And what I really want to emphasize with Robert Dunn, even if you watch his Aging Wheels channel or Under Dunn, his woodworking channel, is his confidence, relaxation, and charisma. And it might come naturally to him, but I believe that everyone can work on charisma, and they can look at someone like Robert Dunn and get inspired.
And as far as working to become more natural on camera, that's just time. You just keep doing it. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get at it. And I do think it's important to, as much as I'm not really a fan of saying having the avatar behind the camera, I do think it helps to imagine that you're actually talking to somebody who will be watching the video. Sometimes it's easy to forget that you see numbers of people watching, but you forget that these are actual people watching your video on their phone or on their TV or wherever. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.